wasn't a celebrity, would you be so nice to me?
Hey guys! So yes, today's book is Starstruck by Lauren Conrad, and this is the second in her Fame Game trilogy. She does have the LA Candy trilogy. If you saw my reviews on those, you know I didn't think they were that great. I was surprisingly impressed by the Fame Game. And then Starstruck, I was like maybe halfway through the book when I realized, I really like this book. I will say though, I'm a little bit into the final book of the trilogy, Infamous, and I'm not loving it as much as the first two. But if you're looking for something easy, something simple, something that's not going to tax your brain, read the Fame Game trilogy. It's not so bad. In the previous book, Madison was approached by the same guy who produced LA Candy, and he said, I need you for this show. You're going to be the star of this show. Please, 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 with a cherry on top. So she accepts. The whole premise of the Fame Game is, hey, we've got these 3 or 4 young women, and they're trying to make it in Hollywood. Madison quickly learns that she's not necessarily the star of the show. One of the storylines that comes into play is her long-lost father reappears. Then at the end of the novel, she goes to the premiere of the Fame Game. She had been loaned a diamond necklace, and then her dad produces the matching earrings. Come to find out, he'd stolen the earrings, and then he steals the necklace. So in this book, Madison is facing community service because she takes the fall. And if anything, that is what I don't understand. As much as I enjoyed the Fame Game, I did not necessarily understand her evolution, and we see more of that here. Her storyline goes like this. She is sentenced to community service at a rescue shelter. Her supervisor, Ryan, treats her like dirt because he thinks she's just some spoiled brat. Over the course of this, she kind of sees things like her life for what it really is, and she comes to the conclusion that I don't really think I like the way that I was behaving. Through that, she and Ryan start dating, and then here's a spoiler. Fame Game is filming her doing this, and he is the only person at this shelter who refuses to be on camera, and we find out that it's because he had gotten in trouble with the law himself. He came from a very privileged background. He'd had too much to drink, got into a car accident, ended up killing his best friend. However, his situation is sort of the opposite of Madison's, where he did something wrong, he had no consequences. She did not do something wrong, yet she did suffer the consequences. So they start dating only for the paparazzi to get wind of this romance, and then Ryan breaks it off because he had just escaped that limelight and that stigma. And so he did not want to be part of anything that would continue to attach him to his bad decisions. I didn't mind this at all. I liked that Madison became something of a real person, that we got to see another side of her. We got to see her vulnerabilities. But at the same time, I thought it was an awfully quick turnaround. Mostly, and maybe it wouldn't apply if I hadn't read LA Candy. But LA Candy, she is the villain. She is horrible. And then in Fame Game, she's still pretty self-centered, still pretty horrible, still all about herself and being the star of the show. So that's 4 books. All it took was getting to know her father and then serving community service to change her. So I thought, in the grand scheme of things, it was a little too easy for her to change her tune. Maybe if she were a normal person, I could buy it, like if she were an everyman. But she's a fame whore. And for a decade, she has been trying to set her, maybe not a decade, how old is she? Because I think she came to LA when she was 15 or 16. I think she's probably 22, so maybe not quite a decade. but for quite a number of years, she has been transforming herself into somebody else, into a whole new persona. So I didn't quite understand how she could just break that down over the course of a couple months. Because that's basically how long the two books together are, a couple of months. So I liked the storyline as a whole. I like to see Madison as more than just a one-dimensional character. But I did think it was a little quick. As for her other coworkers, as for the other plots within Starstruck, her other co-stars are Carmen Curtis, and she is trying to be an actress. And there's Kate Hayes, who is the flyover state hick trying to be a musician. And then there's Gabby. I don't remember her last name. Gabby also came from LA Candy. And if you know anything about the Hills and about Lauren Conrad's reality television world, Gabby would be the Audrina. And I mean, Audrina, I did. I thought she was kind of boring. I thought she was kind of dumb. But then reading this book, I mean, I think the best part about LA Candy, and then even the Fame Game trilogy, is that behind the scenes look at reality TV and how people are spun to look a certain way. And so by reading this book and the last book, I don't feel like Audrina was nearly as dumb as she appeared. I haven't seen the reboot, so I don't know if they've changed her persona or not. But in Starstruck in particular, Gabby had gone from kind of this happy-go-lucky girl next door with maybe a drinking problem and a taste in bad men, or a bad taste in men. Actually, it could go either way. She has gone to this anorexic pill popper who still makes terrible decisions when it comes to men, and she is a complete idiot. She cannot do anything. The only thing she's good at is getting coffee. In Starstruck, she is extremely emaciated, and spoiler, at the end of the novel, what kind of brings things full circle is she accidentally overdoses. So that's kind of how bad her problem with pills has gotten. But I have never seen the point in Gabby because of her inanity. She adds nothing. She's not even that funny or that cute. In the Fame Game world, she's supposed to be that character that kind of makes things a little bit more lighthearted with her stupid comments. We don't see that here. All we see is somebody who has no control over her life and is extremely ditzy. I think it's the LA Candy trilogy. We learn that the transformation happens because she gets a publicist, and this publicist wants to change her image. I don't know if she still has the publicist, but she has taken this image to the next level. But we have never gotten a really good explanation as to why she kept up this image. She doesn't seem to have liked the image that was cultivated for her. So unless it's really the matter of, yes, she's addicted to pills and that's that, but we don't know. Like, we don't know. She's so flat, so one-dimensional. Zero storyline, barely even a storyline within the book or within the Fame Game world. So I don't like Gabby. She really bothers me, and it brings the book down. As far as Kate and Carmen are concerned, in LA Candy, I thought that Jane, who is Elsie's counterpart, was really boring. And so I was afraid that Kate and Carmen were gonna be the same thing. So even though Carmen had the really famous parents, and yeah, she spoiled, kind of had this jaded view on life because of the way she was brought up, she was actually pretty normal. And so she and Kate got along famously until, and this is part of Fame Game, until Kate starts dating this guy named Luke. Carmen gets the leading role in a movie opposite Luke, who is an actor, and then they engage in a pretend relationship. both for the press of the Fame game as well as for press of their upcoming movie. This bothers Kate to the point that she breaks up with Luke and she cuts Carmen off because she doesn't understand the game. She's from a flyover state. Why would she? Personally, I think the girls got it right. Like, if Luke will not let people know, if he will not publicize that he is with you because you're not famous on the advice of his manager, he's probably not worth your time anyways. In this book, Kate and Carmen, they're not necessarily on the outs, but they're not nearly as friendly as they used to be. And then Kate gets into a fight with her mother, and this is something I couldn't jive with. Her mother, she's a pop star, and she's releasing a new album. And so in the first book, the parents were staunchly against being filmed for the Fame game. And then as soon as her mother's new album comes out, it occurs to Carmen, is this why my mother is now so willing to be filmed? Because every other conversation, every other word is about her new single. So she approaches her mother and she says, look, I'm really uncomfortable with you being on the show, this, that, and the other. And then her mother essentially says, okay, well then fine, I'm kicking you out of the house. So I didn't quite buy this reasoning, except we needed some problems with Carmen. That I don't have a problem with. Yes, let's get some tension in there. Let's move the story forward. Like, Carmen, aside from the fake relationship and then the broken friendship between her and Kate, she really doesn't have much going on. But I did think it was unrealistic. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe because I have parents that would never do this to me. But I thought it was unrealistic that her mother, who she's supposedly like a sister with, would just kick her out of the house because Carmen says, I feel like you're out for yourself and I would prefer if you not try to overshadow my rising star every chance you get. Although now that I put it like that, I can see why her mother would get so mad. But in any case, because she gets kicked out of the house, she has to find somewhere to live. Nobody answers their phones, so she calls Luke. I guess from there, she starts to say, maybe I actually do like him, even though they've broken up. And although some of this could also be because she has a best friend named Drew, who she's grown up with and knows that he likes her, yet she's always told him no, that he gets interested in Kate. So I think some of it could stem from that. But I thought it highly unbelievable that all of a sudden Kate, who had already hooked up, which I feel like that is an over-exaggeration for what she did with Luke. All they did was make out when they were drunk at a club. I feel like they're putting emphasis on this hooking up as if something more serious happened or something more prolonged happened. Somebody that she's already engaged with romantically and said no, now she's like yes. So then in this book, and this was a problem I had with LA Candy, was Jane had a love triangle as well, and the guy she wanted most was never in the picture. Literally, I think Brayden was in the first half of the first book, yet we were supposed to care about him throughout the entire trilogy. We get the same kind of deal with Luke, where he plays a prominent role in the first half of the Fame game, or maybe it was a little more than that. And then when Kate breaks up with him, he's kind of an afterthought. Well, obviously he's an afterthought. But then he comes back in this book because Carmen moves in with him, but only in word. We never actually see her move in with him because then almost, I don't know how long after, with Gabby in the hospital, I think I'm getting ahead of myself. Anyways, yes, so Carmen ends up moving in. Oh no, I'm getting way ahead of myself. Forget I said anything. If I could find a screech noise, I would do. And do special effects to say, hey, we're stopping right there because I'm getting way ahead of myself. But so we're stopping this right here. I cannot, that's the problem with reading books in a series all in a row, is sometimes I get ahead of myself. I mix things up. But yes, Carmen moves in with Luke and then eventually develops those feelings for him. So I liked her in Starstruck because I felt like she did start to make a name for herself. We did get this idea that she has talent. She's just not a kid of a celebrity who gets what she wants because of her last name, but she actually has some chops. And then Kate, I liked her too. I will say I didn't really care for either of them going into Infamous, but Starstruck, I thought, did an amazing job at developing Kate and Carmen and making them likable characters with some depth, characters I could get behind. So Kate has major stage fright. They turn this into a storyline. She goes to all kinds of like therapists and hypnotists and what's the thing where they put the needles in you? She goes to that. Nothing's working. But she gets a prescription of Xanax from some psychiatrist. And she realizes that stuff's pretty effective. She basically gets addicted to Xanax, which on its own, not a problem. I like that Kate isn't perfect. I like that in a way you start to see her getting sucked into the LA scene. But it, again, happened really quickly. We see her going to the therapist. We see him giving her a prescription. And the next thing you know, she's always taking them. We don't see much of a build-up. And again, it is due to having too many narrative perspectives. Because they're all unrelated. It's not like Madison is looking in on Kate, who's looking in on Carmen. Yes, we might see bits and pieces, we might have mentions. We don't see them getting into each other's lives, so we're not seeing the other girls' problems develop outside of their POVs. And the next thing we know, the girls have this award show that they're going to be speaking at. And Kate realizes, and here's a spoiler, Kate realizes she has left her prescription at home. So she turns to Gabby, and Gabby says, yeah, I've got some. How many do you want? She asks for 2. And I don't know how quickly opioids go into effect. But it's not too much long after where she's like, what's wrong with me? Again, if I had effects that were LSD-ish, I would do that. She looks at the prescription bottle and she realizes that one of Gabby's Xanax is 4 times the strength of her own. She's essentially loaded on national television and makes a fool of herself. That's kind of Kate's whole storyline. And additionally, Trevor, because of what happens, he, trying to do some damage control, sends her off to her hometown. And he's also irritated with her because, and this is something I don't buy, he feels like she's acting too much of a diva because she won't be his puppet. I guess because we see things from her perspective, so we understand why she says no to this, why she says no to that. But yeah, he's like, oh, she's such a diva. I'm like, I don't really think so. She's just not doing everything you say. So he sends her off to Ohio, where this I thought I didn't buy, where she has a run-in with her ex-boyfriend who treats her like garbage, and then her mother defends him, and then they both accuse her of changing too much and becoming too LA, and I was like, maybe? I mean, I definitely think there were some changes, but I didn't feel like she was straight up LA, so I thought that was out of left field, especially because we didn't spend much time with those scenes. But it's while she's in Ohio that she realizes she's got the feels for Drew, Carmen's best friend. And then they start a relationship as soon as she comes home. And I'm like, I saw it coming, but at the same time, even though I'm getting ahead of myself here, it makes more sense for Kate and Drew than it does for, in my opinion, for Carmen and Luke. Because even though Carmen and Luke worked together, they never had this chemistry. There was never Carmen, except for maybe thinking, yeah, Luke is attractive. There's never this thing about Carmen thinking, maybe, and then all of a sudden, yes. So with Drew and Kate, you could see how they're spending all this time together. He's really supportive of her. He's flirty. But yeah, so Starstruck, I particularly like Trevor because he does offer that alternative view to why things are happening and why the girls are being manipulated. He gives the show perspective because honestly, none of the books convince me that it needs to be about girls in Hollywood on a television show. I feel like we see them going about their lives. We rarely, particularly here, we rarely see them being filmed. And they just all of a sudden are complaining about filming schedules and hassles and their producers and this and that and the other. And I'm like, I mean, really, the most that you give me in this book about that being the major player is how long it takes for production to set up. So I felt like that was a fail for this book. That was a fail for the previous series where I'm like, why does it matter that they're on a reality TV show? Because none of what happens in their lives that we see is actually on film, or at least 95%. I do wish overall it felt more like the television show was intrusive upon these girls' lives rather than, oh, well, I did this filming yesterday, but this is all the stuff that I'm doing now that is not going on camera. And then we would get them thinking, well, I know this is how the producers would want me to react, or this is what the producers would want me to say, but I'm not going to do it because then they're going to use it to manipulate the situation. They're going to use these looks, or they're going to use these words to make something appear like something it wasn't. Like they're going to use it to create a scene that never really happened. I appreciated that those little tidbits were put in there so that we could appreciate what reality TV is like. But I guess I was never fully convinced that being on this television show was that bad for them, that bad for their image, that they couldn't just go along with the storylines that Trevor set up. Not to say that they should. Like, I'm not saying that whatever he was doing was healthy. But in terms of the book, I just wasn't convinced that what he was doing was bad to them. Except when we got to Trevor and we saw what he wanted to do to them. But when we're in the moment with them, I'm like, so why is it a big deal? Especially if your show gets more ratings because you say or do something that can be manipulated, and that means that you get more paycheck. I dog-eared some pages in this book, and I don't remember why. So we're gonna look at that and see why I may have done that. So this is actually a double dog ear. The back of the dog ear was the whole fight with Cassandra, Carmen's mom, which I've already gone over. So the thing with Carmen is she has begun to realize that somebody she knows, somebody in her inner circle is leaking information about her to the press. And so she is advised to plant false stories with various members in her circle to see what shows up in the tabloids. This is the one that I suspect because before the series opens, she and this girl, Fawn, had been out shopping. Fawn also comes from an extremely wealthy family. She's also trying to make it in Hollywood. She hasn't been as successful, and so she decides to steal something. And Carmen takes the fall, I think because Fawn already had some kind of a record. But Carmen is still friends with her because Carmen thinks that Fawn is just misunderstood and she's really fun. Fawn has some kind of an engagement, and so she is going through all of Carmen's clothes. Doesn't ask, she just decides, hey, you know what? Like, you have more than I do. You have better stuff than I do. So I'm going to help myself. Now they're discussing the bad press, the bad publicity. And so it says, at this, Fawn laughed out loud. Carmen, are you hearing yourself? A, you're being totally paranoid. And B, don't you think it's a little self-centered for you to assume that someone is out to get you? Carmen sat up. Fawn, in another one of her dresses now, was looking at her with comic disbelief. Also, a little crazy, she added. Carmen laughed, a rush of relief flooding her thoughts as she let Fawn's words sink in. Yeah, you're probably right. I'm being crazy. You're a nice person, Carmen, Fawn said. For instance, you're gonna let me borrow this dress too. And nice people don't make enemies. Carmen nodded. You're right. I am nice. And because I'm so nice, I'm also going to let you borrow the Christian Louboutin clutch that matches. Fawn grinned and did a little victory dance around Carmen's room. You're the best. I promise to only say good things about you, ever. Carmen smiled back. Fawn was definitely a bit cuckoo, and she had certain issues with boundaries, as in, she didn't seem to have any. But still, Carmen knew that Fawn meant what she said. Am I the only one who doesn't understand why Carmen would just let a friend... I mean, obviously, she doesn't see the truth about Fawn. You get all these little sprinklings in here about how Fawn is jealous of Carmen. She is jealous of Carmen's success. So my thought is, yes, Fawn is the one leaking all this bad publicity to the press. And this is where she's like Jane, where she's just unwilling to see what's right in front of her face. And to add to that, she's gonna let this girl borrow her Louis Vuitton clutch. And I'm like, Carmen, this is when you start to lose me. This is when I start to wonder, why do I care about you? Because you're so focused on the problem. Basically, you can't see the forest through the trees. And I wish that she would be a little bit more suspicious. But she's more suspicious of her mother than a girl with a track record. I have one more. What is it? Oh, it just goes back to the fight with her mother. The mother, while the dad is out of town, the mother says, not only am I kicking you out of the house, I'm taking back your car. I'm cutting off your credit cards. I was like, what? For Carmen standing up for herself or just saying something that you don't like to hear, you're going to completely strip her of her entire livelihood? Again, a little too fast. I've already told you that I thought that this scene took place a little too suddenly. We do see how Carmen is irritated with her mother. But all it takes is one confrontation and her mother throws in the towel and says, you're out of here. P.S. Give me everything that would help you survive. Although Carmen, when she leaves the house, because then to get her own last word and says, well, why do I even have to wait for tomorrow? I'll leave tonight. So she takes her car to Luke's house? I thought she had to give her car back. Whatever. I still liked Starstruck. There were just plot points that I didn't understand. Writing that I didn't think was as fully developed as it should have been. And then actually, what happens? Yeah, so I think what I forgot to tell you. So I told you, Gabby overdoses. And Madison has had a come to Jesus moment throughout the book. She realizes that it's her sister Sophie, or Sophia. I can never remember. Both changed their names, and I can't remember if Sophie... I think it's Sophie, because I think it was Sophie Lynn. And then, for the sake of LA Candy, Madison changed it to Sophia. It doesn't really matter. Just for me, I somehow can never keep it straight. But, so she finds out that her sister, who at the end of LA Candy is sent to rehab, and then when she comes out, she's like this flower child into yoga and love and peace and everything. And so she's keeping up this facade, But then Madison realizes it was Sophie who leaked the information about Madison dating Ryan and the restaurant they were going to be at when the paparazzi caught up to them. Madison confronts Sophie, and then she realizes nobody has her best interest at heart. Maybe this is not where she needs to be, so she quits the show. So not only do we end on the note of Gabby having overdose, but then Madison, who is the star, quitting too. So you don't really know how it's going to turn out, because Madison is that character within the show that viewers love to hate. While they think she's atrocious, they also think she's fantastic. And then when she takes the fall for stealing the necklace, her viewers, her fans, turn on her. She loses all of her endorsements. She has no money. And actually, this is something that I'm glad I remembered to mention. When in the first book she borrows the necklace, she makes a huge deal out of, and this is foreshadowing, of what would happen if she lost this necklace, how she would never be able to pay it off. So then when she takes the fall for the necklace, how is she able to afford paying it back? Except that she's given a huge discount. And here's another thing. Charlie, her dad, was caught on tape stealing the earrings. And he left a note saying he took the necklace. So there's a lot of evidence saying, okay, yeah, Madison's completely innocent. But then she commits perjury in saying that, yes, it was her and this is why she did it. And so she can't actually recant and say, I'm innocent, because I guess she could suffer harsher penalties because she perjured herself. And so this is me not really understanding the law. This is me saying A plus B equals C. If you say you lied and you explain why you lied, well, why can't you just be off the hook? Anywho, so yeah, that was something I personally could not wrap my mind around. And maybe it's because this book also took place a long time before celebrities started doing bad things and getting away with it, or it being okay. Just try to figure out why it's such a big deal, because I feel like in today's society, just because you do something bad doesn't mean you're gonna pay any consequences. But where I was coming from is, how does she still have any money whatsoever after having to pay off what she does have to pay off? So something else I was trying to sneak in there. What she does is, when she realizes she doesn't have the necklace, she reaches out to the jewelry store and says, look, I don't have the necklace, but instead of pressing charges or doing whatever you're going to do, we'll just give you a lot of publicity. You can cut me a break, a discount on how much I'm going to owe you, because all the publicity from me stealing your necklace is going to pay you back 100-fold. But still, even what she owes them, I don't understand how she has any money. You made it sound in the previous book that if you lost this necklace, you'd be in a whole heap of trouble. And aside from community service and losing endorsement deals, I don't see a whole heap of financial trouble. Go check out Starstruck. Go check out Fame Game. I will let you know if you should check out Infamous. Later, Gators!